Thank you for tuning into SavagePowerSupercars, and thanks to those who are already subscribing. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, pressing on the button and also the alerts so you get alerted to a new episode when it comes out. So let me tell you a bit about what the channel is going to be about. I want to capture the story behind the cars. So when somebody gets a certain car, whether it's a supercar or it's a special car that's a supercar to them, I want to capture what drove them to it, what was the story, what was the backstory, and that's going to be what the channel is going to be about. So please tune in, and if you've got any cars you want to be featured, then drop me a message. It'd be lovely to hear from you. I'll have a chat about cars on camera. So it doesn't matter what you have, if you've got a passion about it and there's an interesting story, drop me a message. So let's talk about where it all started for me. And the reason for the channel and where it all came out, the idea, was because when I was driving these cars, people kept asking me, how did I get there? What did I do? What was the reason? Why the Ferraris? Why these other cars and things like this? So I wanted to capture it, and hence the channel. So moving on to exactly where it started. For me, it was back in 1986 when I was age 6, giving my age away there. And those people that know me know I'm a pretty chatty person. And we were walking along Nottingham town centre in 86, chatting to my parents, and then I just stopped talking and I saw this little red car and I just couldn't believe what it was. It was like a spaceship to me. It was like no other car I'd seen. It was just incredible, beautiful design, bright red, white leather interior, and it was just so special. Parked on the side outside where Midland Bank used to be. Never ever forgotten that day. Could still play it back in my mind. My dad took a photograph of me next to the car. I actually didn't want to do that because I was too nervous in case the owner came. Even though I wasn't touching the car, I was just too scared. It was just such a special thing. I didn't want to risk damaging it or being anywhere near it. But thank God my dad, pursued me to take a photograph of me. And for a Christmas present that year, I had it blown up into really AO size print, which I still have. And when I got a smartphone, I took a photograph of this big photograph and kept it on my smartphone. So hopefully one day I'll own a Ferrari. One day I'll do it. One day I'll drive a car just like that, or one of those actual models. So that's a little bit of backstory. Still love that car, and I'll talk about a bit more about that car in due course. But let's talk about my actual journey. So from that day, I've always liked cars, always been passionate about it. My dad had a GTI 16 valve with a BBS body kit on it in white, BBS alloys. It was such a cool car in the late 80s, early 90s, and my heart sank when he sold it. And he got a diesel. It's like, oh, it's a sad day that, still hurts. And he kind of misses that car still. But needs must at the time. And then we had some kind of normal cars, just nothing, say, to write home about per se in terms of being special. But then when I was able to buy my first sort of proper car or favourite car, I ended up buying a Honda Civic TypeR, an EP3, and I had that about a couple of years, and then I got carjacked, and then basically found it got recovered by the police. Then I got rid of it because of what happened, and then I had some other cars, Mini Cooper S, the new Stack one. They were really good, but never quite got over the TypeR. Loved that car. So then in 2011, got another EP3, the facelift model in cosmic grey. First one was black. Absolutely one of the best cars I've owned, including all the cars I've had so far. Brilliant car, great value for money, really fun, fast at the time. Just a great sound from that VTEC, and those that know EP3 TypeRs will know exactly what I'm talking about. Superb car. So I had that about a year, then got carjacked again for that. Got it back, kept it this time for around 8 years, and had that car as a daily for the longest I've ever had a car. And that basically was a car I'd have again easily, but it became a weekend car, not my daily. And then what happened is I got into a position of basically being able to buy my first Ferrari. So I went from the EP3 Honda Civic, which I sold. Bit of a sad day. The guy really liked it though, and he had a lot of Hondas already, so I was going to a good home. And then replaced it with a Ferrari. So what I did about 6 months before buying the said Ferrari was um, basically building up networks with people across the UK. You know, have they got this spec? Have they not got this spec? Trying to get the word out there to look for this specific car, and went through lots of different options of different Ferraris. Like the Ferrari that I saw in '86 was a 328. Do I want one of those? Did I want the V8? Did I want the 308? Went to have a look at 308. It was great, beautiful, but it wasn't fast. It didn't give me that wow factor, even though it was beautiful. It wasn't loud enough. And then I thought, oh, maybe the 328, that wasn't loud enough for me at the time. So you know, did I want a more modern one? Went through lots of different options to look at them, and then watched a certain video by someone. Now, the video I'm going to mention is called The Testarossa Story, and that's by a guy called John Pogson, and that will feature later on in the story. So I'll come back to that. So what I'm doing is looking, networking, and keeping an eye on for cars and things, and looking for the right spec Testarossa. My ideal spec was all the Ferraris that I used to see in the late 80s and early 90s. Red, Rosso Corsa red, the typical resale Ferrari red, which is my favourite because that's the first one I ever saw. Cream or crema leather interior and a black dash. So that was the kind of spec that I was looking for in an 80s car. Most of them are brown dashes. Most of them that I was seeing were brown dash and tan leather, but I really wanted to hold out for that spec. That moment when I used to look through the car window and go, one day I'll have one. The car I was actually going for was actually a Testarossa. So the Testarossa for me has been the pinnacle of a road-going Ferrari that I've always wanted. I'd love an F40. They were way out the price range. So was a 280 GTO. That was way out the price range. But the Testarossa was in my price range, and it ticked the childhood dream. And you know, a 328 would have been fantastic, but to be able to go for a 12-cylinder flat 12, because the engine is not in a V format, it's in a, or Ferrari call it their Boxer type engine, which I'll come to later on, was a dream. I had models of Testarossas when I was growing up, so to actually realise that, oh my gosh, I'm actually hunting for my very own Testarossa was just a moment which just seemed surreal. I had to pinch myself. It was such an odd experience, a great one, but bizarre. So I built up on these relationships that I built with a specialist across the UK, and I was looking on auction sites, and I came to find one on auction site, had it inspected, paid for the inspection to be done by a guy I know who's a Ferrari expert, and it turned out to have an oil leak. These engines can suffer from that, so I walked away from that one. I went to another place, which I went to a very early one on Monodado, a Monodado, where it's got the single mirror. The rarest ones, the collectible ones to go for. It looked good, and mileage was okay. It was black interior, but it was a rare car. But fortunately, it wasn't quite right, so I walked away from that. And at this point, I'm thinking, am I ever going to get one? Is it ever going to happen? Should I go for the brown spec dashboard rather than the black that I wanted? Should I go for the tan interior rather than the crema? But held out, and then got a call from Foskers. A call back really from Foskers, for a guy called Jeff Fosker, who owns the company, the oldest Ferrari specialist in the UK. Great guys. And he said, I might have one that matches your spec, Ben. I was like, okay, great, Jeff, let me know. And he went away, and he came back about 2 or 3 days later, the most nail-biting time of my life, thinking, oh my gosh, has he found the car, the exact car I want? Or hasn't he? Will it come off, will it not? And he did have one. He found one for me, and I believe it was in storage, and he negotiated a deal with the owner, because it wasn't actually on the market, it wasn't for sale per se, and it had everything I was looking for. It was the 5-stud wheel Testarossa, so it was an 89.5, as they're called. It had 2 mirrors. Didn't want to go for the Monospecchio because I was a bit worried about driving with 1 mirror. Beautiful, but might be a bit difficult as first classic Ferrari to drive. Wanted it to be a bit easy to drive. So 2 mirrors. It had crema interior with a black dash, and it was Rosso Corsa red. So it ticked all my boxes. I couldn't believe it. It'd been in storage, and Jeff came back with a price. He'd obviously negotiated, and we agreed the deal, and I waited for it to be serviced by Foskers. it was serviced. I think it came up to me in Manchester about a couple of weeks later in a trailer, and blocked off the road where I lived then, and got this Ferrari delivered at 6 o'clock at night, or I think it was about 20 past 6, which is quite crucial, and just unbelievable moment of seeing your own Ferrari being delivered. Just incredible, and professional service from the guys delivering it, and I'll link them in the description. Really, really good delivery, professional. Tried to get it on my driveway and couldn't get it on my driveway because it was it's a very low car with a huge overhang at the front. Also, my driveway, we'd lived there about a year. What we didn't realize is the driveway had dipped, and when we drove the car up to try and put it in the garage, it was going to ground. So I had to shoot to B&Q, which is about 15-minute, 20-minute drive away, and it was 20 minutes to closing. Go and get some sand, go and get some wood. Got to B&Q, realised I'd forgotten my wallet. Thank God they just started taking contactless. So I ran around the store, grabbed everything I needed, flew back to go and get this Testarossa off the road where I'd left it, looked after by my mate and my parents, and get it in the garage as quick as possible before it started raining in Manchester, which, as people know, Manchester can rain quite a bit. Anyway, finally got it in the garage, much to my help of my dad and my mate John. Got it in the garage, and then we just all stood there with a sigh of relief, getting this almost 2 meter wide, almost 4.5 meter wide car in said garage, and it just went in. Thankfully, I'd already measured before, put a diagram with my Baraga models against the scale of the garage, so I knew it would go in. It was tight, but it just went in. And yeah, just looking at this Testarossa in the garage, thinking, that's my car. It's crazy. Still gives me goosebumps, but it's most amazing experience. Beautiful piece of engineering by Ferrari. True classic. I think if you say to Ferrari, to somebody my age, a bit younger, maybe a little bit older as well, they'll probably say Testarossa. It's such an iconic design. Still looks good. Still looks breathtaking. Looks like a proper rock star's car. Not that I'm a rock star, but you can imagine them driving them. And I think members of Motley Crue had a few Ferraris amongst them. So I think that says it all. Just an iconic car. So we were just gazing at the car and taking it in, having a beer with a sigh of relief, thinking, thank God it's in. And looking forward to taking it to a drive when it was a free day. Please stay tuned. Please subscribe. Hit the alert button so you get alerted to when I upload the next video. And follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So drop me a message if you've got any car questions or want to ask me anything about the cars that I've owned, or anything at all. Just reach out, and if you're local in Manchester, meet for a coffee, have a chat about cars. Doesn't matter what car you have, if you've got a story and a passion, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free. But thanks very much for your time. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you soon at a show or talk to you online. Take care. All the best. Thank you.